Hey everybody, I'm Venompool, and I'm terrible, but not for long. Hello friends, and welcome back to the channel for a buff that I am very excited to talk about today. Venompool, one of the worst champions in the game, is finally getting a long-needed and much-deserved overhaul. Venompool has been awful since pretty much the day he came into the game. Awful no longer, folks. And I just want to say right off the bat that on paper, he has the potential to end up being better than Venom. And we'll talk about why. You guys know I'm a huge fan of Venom in the game. So functionally, Venompool's kit is going to look a lot like a combination of Venom and Venom the Duck. So he kind of has Venom the Duck's buffs, but they don't persist from fight to fight, and he also has a lot of Venom's damage and utility. So let's go through here. First thing I want to call out here is that he's getting a pretty significant prestige bump. So as a 6-star R3, he is currently ranked at 155th overall. This PI 13619 is going to take him up to 54th. It's going to tie him with Guillotine, so pretty close to the top 50. I mean, not going to be a prestige option for the top players in the game, but still, you know, nothing really too bad about it. Alright, so Venompool's mechanics, his primary focus is this concept of the cooking meter to gain an endless amount of his blender buffs. So this is going to work similar to the way Venom the Duck's RNA bank works. So if you guys know Venom the Duck, he's got that little charge meter in the corner, and it goes up. When it hits 100, he gets a random buff. Pretty much works the same way with Venompool. There are 5 different buffs that Venompool can gain. They don't stack. Once you get all 5 of the blender buffs, then he's going to start stacking Fury buffs, which will increase his damage. He's also really going to be good against tech champions, especially tech champions with armor buffs, which we'll talk about in a few minutes here. So couple strengths, high damage potential. Similarly to the King Groot buff that we talked about yesterday, the longer the fight goes on, the more buffs Venompool is going to get, the more Furies he's going to be able to stack, and the higher his damage output is going to be. He's also keeping the buff Steel that he had in his original kit. So this works similarly to Venom's OM NOM, so I think it's going to act as a nullify. So just keep that in mind if you're going to be using him to steal buffs against like Mystic Warder or something like that. I don't think it's going to work. Weaknesses, pretty much the same as every Cosmic champ. Venompool, very buff reliant, so any Mystic champ who can remove those buffs or prevent them is pretty much going to own him. And then short fights. So you really want to use Venompool over a lengthy fight so that you can build up more of those buffs, get to the point where you're stacking Fury buffs, and then take advantage of that damage increase. So we mentioned the cooking meter already. Venompool has a cooking meter which starts at 50 charges, and he gains 10 more charges every 5 seconds. So in 25 seconds at the start of the fight, you'll be getting your first buff. Once the cooking meter hits 100, you're going to spend all of that charge to get a random buff. We'll talk about those in a minute. There are 5 of them in total, and they're pretty good. Pretty good. And then it doesn't say here, but I believe the cooking meter resets to 0 after that, so that it'll take actually 50 seconds for you to get your second buff, and so on and so on. So one of the big benefits about using Venompool going forward is that he's going to be pretty good against annoying tech champions. So when fighting a tech champion, he's going to gain immunity to Power Drain, Power Burn, and Shock, and Armor Break. And if an effect is prevented this way, gain 50 of your cooking meter with a cooldown of 2 seconds. So right off the bat, practical applications of this, I'm thinking of Guillotine 2099 first of all. So Guillotine's Special 1 will power drain you regardless of if you get hit, if you evade it, or if you parry it. There is a power drain aspect to it. So this will be completely prevented with Venompool. If you find an annoying Guillotine defender in war, Venompool might be a decent option for her going forward. The second champion that came to mind when I read this is Warlock. This seems to provide a hard counter to most everything in Warlock's kit. So you will be immune to the power drain. You will be immune to the shock from the Special 1. You'll be immune to the armor break off the Special 2. Now, Venompool does have a decent amount of regen built into his kit, as we'll get to in a few minutes here. So you do kind of have to be careful against Warlock that you're not regenning when you're infected. But on the other hand, Venompool is going to have access to so many buffs that the duration of Warlock's infection is going to be decreased dramatically as a result. So against tech champions who maybe don't have these kind of effects as a default part of their kit, but nodes that are going to cause them to power drain you, like Plagued Mind, for example, or a Shock node, Venompool, a really good option here. So I'm pretty happy to see this. Alright, so the heavy attack will re-roll the most recently gained blender buff, and again, since it's going to take almost a minute for you to get between buff 1 and buff 2, you have plenty of time to re-roll the attack as many times as you want in order to get the buff that you're specifically looking for. So if you do knock down the opponent with the heavy attack, then you gain a separate buff called Vicious, which increases the potency of damage over time effects by 60%, and this lasts for 5 seconds per unique buff. So when you're fully ramped up, when you have all 5 of your blender buffs and you have your Fury buff, that's going to be a 30-second Vicious buff. Now, in a mode like Incursions, I feel like this has the potential to be like massively OP. If you're getting buff cornucopia and you have one of the hacks that gives you like the incinerates or the shocks, this is going to give him some serious damage in Incursions, and he has some okay survivability too. So very excited to test him out there when the time comes. Alright, so all special attacks are going to give a 100% chance to inflict a bleed debuff, dealing a decent amount of damage, but this damage scales with the level of special attack used. So if you use your special 3, it's actually going to be triple that damage, and 100% chance to deal that damage too. And then when fighting #robot champions, the bleed debuff will be a degen. This is similar to Ultron's kit right now, where he places degen against mutants instead of bleeds. So this is a really nice thing to have when you're fighting like an Ultron or a Guillotine or even a Dragon Man, for example. You're going to place degen instead of a bleed. All right, so special attack 1, each hit, and I think there's 3 of them, has a chance to OM NOM a unique buff on the opponent. When you do this, it's going to grant 50 of your cooking meter. So he's actually going to be pretty decent for buff heavy matchups where you can steal a lot of the opponent's buffs. That's going to enable you to ramp up your damage faster, which is really nice. And again, I mentioned this before, I think the OM NOM acts as a nullify, so be aware of that. This is really cool. If the OM NOM buff is an armor up, so this is going to be more common against a tech champ, you're also going to gain a regen buff, recovering 3,000 health over 5 seconds. So let's take a look real fast at his health pool. So this is it's 10%. You're going to gain 10% health if you OM NOM an armor up buff. So that's pretty good. Especially most of the tech champs these days who have like permanent armor ups. Those armor ups refresh themselves after 10 or 15 seconds. So if you're fighting a Guillotine or a Hulkbuster or a Civil Warrior, actually it won't work against Civil Warrior. If you're fighting a Guillotine or Hulkbuster or Warlock, you can just periodically OM NOM that armor up buff off of them and keep yourself topped up. So the special attack 2 is really interesting. What you want to do with this one is you want to special intercept the opponent, and if you do that successfully, you have a 100% chance to inflict a stun debuff lasting 3 seconds. Now, at this point, you kind of have 2 choices on how to proceed. If you let Venompool finish his moonwalk animation after the special 2, and with the 3-second stun debuff, you're going to have, in most matchups, plenty of time to do that. You're going to gain a temporary duplicate of each of your blender buffs, each lasting 20 seconds. So if you're fully ramped up in a longer fight, you've got all 5 of your blender buffs, you've got your Fury there, you're going to gain a copy of each of them for a short amount of time. If you instead choose to use the stun debuff as a free opening and interrupt your dance animation and attack the opponent, you're instead going to gain a power gain buff, granting 1 bars of power over at 10 seconds. So this can be useful, I think, in buff heavy matchups or when you need Venompool to get to his regen faster. So in matchups, again, like I was saying earlier, against Warlock or Guillotine, by the time you're going to get this bar of power, they're probably going to have their armor up buff back again, and you'll be at your special one ready to steal it. So I think that can be pretty useful. If you play really aggressively, the power gain plus the aggressive playstyle should be able to get you back to the special 2 faster. So I like that there's a couple different options there for what you can do. All right, so the special 3, Venompool's cooking meter becomes spicy for 20 seconds, which causes it to build twice as fast. And if the cooking meter hits 100 while it is spicy, all personal bleed and degen debuffs on the opponent are paused for 8 seconds. So I've thought about this quite a bit. I'm not sure how useful this is going to be, because what you're going to end up having to do here is you're going to already have to have debuffs, bleed or degen debuffs on the opponent while you hit. Then you're going to have to hit the special 3 before your cooking meter hits 100, and then after that you're going to get the debuffs paused. So this feels like, maybe in a matchup where you have some sort of increased access to power gain, you might be able to take advantage of this. But just off the top of my head, it feels like in a normal matchup, this is probably not going to come into play very often. All right, so the blender buffs, we mentioned a bunch of times. So there are 5 different blender buffs. So Precision, which gives him a pretty decent increase to his crit rating, and Energize, which gives him 15% combat power rate. And again, think about doubling these up with the Special 2 as well, for a non-insignificant amount of time, 20 seconds. So 1400 crit rate, 30% combat power rate. That is huge. And here's the big one, guys, the klyntar mutation. So Venompool is getting the exact same klyntar buff that Venom has, which allows him to completely ignore the passive evade effects of Spider-Verse Champion. So this is, as I understand it, the same as Venom's. It is not a percentage-based chance like Roblin's, which is a bit inferior to Venom's. So you're getting, basically the big appeal of using Venom in a quest is now available for Venompool. So the klyntar mutation also gives him a nice bump in attack rating. So again, think of this as doubled 1400 attack. That's a pretty good chunk of attack. Hunter Spider, you recognize this from Spider-Gwen. Attacks will deal a burst of additional physical damage. So again, 50% bonus physical damage on hits when these buffs are doubled up via the Special 2. And finally, Malice, which is a kind of like an aptitude, but just for Furies. So you get up to 100% Fury buff potency based on how long the fight has gone on, max bonus at about 3 minutes or so. So once you get all 5 of the blender buffs, you're going to start stacking Fury buffs instead, which each of them granting about 500 attack rating for a minute. So pretty nice. I think that his damage potential in a lengthy fight with the proper rotation, and again, it's kind of hard to visualize this on paper. I can't wait till we can get this guy and test him out on the beta server. The damage potential in a long fight looks pretty good to me, and the klyntar mutation just it kind of lowers Venom's value a little bit, because to this point he was the only champion who could completely counter Spider-Verse evades without any other ramp up or anything. Now you might be saying to yourself, but Venom's klyntar buff is active at the start of the fight, and with Venompool you only have a 20% chance to get the klyntar buff after 25 seconds at the start of the fight when your cooking meter hits 100. You would be almost right. So Venompool's signature ability has changed, and now he's going to begin the quest with a persistent charge. The persistent charge you can use before every single fight, and you can select one of the blender buffs as his fave food for the next fight. And then that buff is more likely to be chosen at random and gains 60% potency. So this works functionally similar to the synergies that Venom the Duck has, where certain buffs have a higher likelihood of being chosen. Now the actual chance or percent increase, not listed here. I did ask what the increase is, but I haven't gotten a response yet. If I do hear, or they're willing to reveal that, I'll put that in a pinned comment below. So I think in fights on a quest against a Spider-Verse champ, what you want to do is probably pick the klyntar mutation as your favorite food, and then maybe just slow play the start of the fight, and wait until your cooking meter hits 100. If you get the klyntar mutation, then you're good to go for the rest of the fight. If not, you can parry and heavy to try and reset it. So I like the element of choice here, where you can choose, depending on the matchup, you can choose which buff you want to to increase the potency of. So even if you don't get it first, the potency will still increase. So, Energize, for example, might be useful in a fight where you want to use a lot of specials. Maybe like Special Delivery, for example. You can increase your attack rating even further if you choose in Spider-Verse matchups when you choose the klyntar buff. You can increase your physical damage as long as your opponent doesn't have a high amount of physical resistance. There's a lot of ways that you can play this champion. I really like the element of choice here. I feel like they took the good parts of Venom the Duck and combined them with the good parts of Venom to make this champ. So I'm really excited to play him. All right, so these synergy bonuses, let's talk about these. So all of the synergies really only affect Venompool. So the other champions that are in the synergy team all get a health and attack rating, but the synergies are really designed just to improve Venompool. And guys, just right off the bat here, I got to give major props to the design team. These synergy names are great. So it's basically a one giant recipe. It's awesome. So the first one, start with fresh Deadpool with Deadpool Gold Pool, Plat Pool, and Deadpool X-Force. So when the cooking meter hits 100, 40% chance to gain a regen buff, recovering 5% of max health over 15 seconds. So this could be really useful in a mode like Incursions, or maybe Alliance Quest, where you want to really avoid using items and increase your survivability. If you hit the cooking meter if you get the cooking meter to 100, you gain the regen buff. I'm not sure if you can copy this buff with this special too, so have to test that out when it's on the live server. Accurately measure ingredients with Daredevil, DDHK, Falcon, and Night Monkey. So Venompool gets a 300 plus 300 crit rating for each unique buff. This basically seems like it's turning Venompool into, I think there's a synergy with Daredevil and Hitmonkey that is very similar to this. Now it's going to take a bit longer to ramp up because the unique buffs are not going to hit their maximum number until several minutes into the fight, but his crit rate should be pretty impressive in very long fights. So next one is Blend in Symbiote with Venom, Agent Venom, Venom the Duck, Symbiote Supreme. Start the fight with one blender buff activated. I'm not really sure I'll probably ever use this synergy. It seems like a nice to have though. This one's awesome. Add plain white flower with Captain America, Beardo, and Cap World War II. Just A+, guys, A+. Venompool gains +3 perfect block chance for each buff on him, max bonus at 21%. Again, this seems like a nice to have. Perfect block is great. This seems like something you would only find useful when the bonus is maxed out. Fry in Skillet with Red Hulk, Sunspot, and Human Torch. This one's awesome. Venompool gains full immunity to incinerate effects. Now notice this says effects, so this will not just be incinerate debuffs, this will also be against like Mephisto's aura, or against the newly buffed Bishop. This synergy would be pretty useful as well. Adjust cooking timer with Bishop, Cable, Kang, and an unknown champion who is coming soon. Very mysterious. Venompool will gain cooking meter every 3 seconds instead of every 5. This synergy, I think you're probably going to want to bring, especially in shorter fights, when you want to be able to ramp up his damage much faster. The decrease from 5 seconds to 3 seconds, I think, is going to be extremely useful. Allow to cool with Vision, Arcus, and Iceman. When the cooking meter hits 100, you have a chance to gain an ice armor buff, granting 2,000 armor rating, and stun immunity for 20 seconds. So this is, again, pretty cool. The chance is only 75, so its usefulness against a node like Mesmerize or Encroaching Stun, maybe not that good. If this was a 100% chance, this synergy would be awesome. Stun immunity is a really cool effect, but again, if it's not a 100% chance, you can't reliably get that ice armor and use it in matchups where you would need to be stun immune. And then finally, munch stunning food with Ronin, Classic Hulk, Immortal Hulk, and Thor Jane Foster. Venompool's Special 2 stun effect is expanded to the Special 1 and Special 3. Not sure this is really useful either. If you're going to go the route where you want to use the specials to get free openings for additional combos, yeah, I guess you could bring this. But I feel like the stun debuff on the special 2 is specifically designed to give you time to finish that that dance animation. You don't have that option on the special 1, special 3, so this doesn't really seem all that useful. And then recommended masteries, extended and enhanced fury. Nobody runs extended and enhanced fury, so don't worry about that. Deep wounds, again, I run 5 out of 5 deep wounds pretty much all the time. Similar to Venom, a lot of his damage feels like it's going to come from the bleeds on the specials, until at least you can ramp up his damage and get those stacking fury buffs. So I do think deep wounds going to be very useful for Venompool. So that's about it for the Venompool buff, guys. Again, I'm pretty excited to give this guy a test. I don't think I have him as a 6-star, but I do have him as a 5-star. So looking forward to testing him on the CCP beta server. Guys, let me know in the comments below what you think about this buff. If you're excited, do you have a 6-star duped Venompool ready to go, ready to take to rank 3 should this buff work out? Guys, please hit the like button for me, and I would appreciate your subscription as well, of course. And as always, thank you very much for watching. See you again next time.